watching East Tennessee's first and only year-round sports talk show on television. This is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
As Chris Berman on ESPN might say, welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. Tennessee once again in a coaching search.
Pretty good.
We will, thank you very much. It's the first time I've done it. We will have a full show devoted, well, almost full, 90% devoted to coaching search. One little bit about UT football at the end. Let's dive in because it's going to be fast-paced. First segment brought to you by Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land, the Phil Cobble team. Absolutely the best realtor in West Knox County, Blount County, Loudoun County. You list with them, they'll even have an interior designer on their staff professionally stage your home, come in and move your furniture around, set it up perfectly for your open house. Phil Cobble, Fine Homes and Land. All right. Also want to mention, let's go ahead and tell you exactly what is on today's show in terms of our headlines and what we've got going. First, we're going to talk about Donnie Tyndall being fired. Are there any issues here that we have to worry about? Bruce Pearl talk has started up again. Should Dave Hart go too, along with Donnie Tyndall? We'll look at 40 candidates for the job. Who might get it? Why? How good is UT's job right now? And oh yeah, there is football to talk about. So let me introduce these guys, the folks in round one of our panel. Mark Pankratz, former Vol staff member under Bruce Pearl, former player at Milwaukee under Bruce Pearl. Jimmy Himes with the WNML, Sports Radio WNML Sports Talk Show, Monday through Friday. Mike Strange, who does the Sentinel Sports page occasionally on 990 and 991, but also Knoxville News Sentinel columnist. Down there from Southern Golf Central Magazine and website.
Yes.
Chuck Cavallari. Chuck, thanks for being here. I always stumble through that one. All right. If we hadn't changed sets since last year, I would have just rerun last year's show because we're right back here again. Dave Hart having to go and find someone. Fired Donnie Tyndall with cause. There's no buyout. Not only did the NCAA give Dave Hart an early heads up of what they're probably planning on Tyndall, but it turned out Tyndall also deleted some emails. Did Tennessee have any other options other than firing Donnie Tyndall?
No, I don't think they did. You know, the emails are damning in themselves. Southern Miss has obviously admitted violations. They've self-imposed penalties. They've declared some players ineligible. And now a head coach is held accountable whether or not he did it. If any assistants under him committed violations, he's accountable. I don't think Tennessee had any choice.
Mark?
I agree. I just think all the things that you alluded to, the talks of it being tier one issues where it's going to be a show clause if that's the case, and the fact that there had to have been new information because as we've talked about up until just a couple of weeks ago, I think Coach Tyndall and that staff thought that they were going to be okay, and so there must have been some new information that second time that they came through that just led it to be that they had to get rid of him.
Does Tyndall think he's still going to come out of this in the clear, do you think?
I think that's a real good possibility. I have not spoken to Donnie personally, but I think that he probably thinks that Tennessee was wrong to fire him.
And if that's the question, Jimmy, you asked this of Dave Hart the other day. I thought it was a great question. Tennessee buttoned up. Let's say that Donnie Tyndall somehow comes out of this clearly. Dave Hart, I thought, made it clear he didn't think that's going to happen. But is Tennessee buttoned up from a lawsuit standpoint if somehow Tyndall is cleared?
I think they are. Having read the contract, I think Tennessee's got their bases covered because you've got Southern Miss admitting to violations. You've got Tyndall with the emails. He admitted in regard to the emails that he deleted them. Well, that's not cooperating with NCAA, so they're going to get him for failure to cooperate in that regard. So I think there's just too much there. And I don't know what the coaches that resigned from Tennessee have told the NCAA,
right.
But I've got a feeling there's so much that Tennessee has that there's no, I don't think he's going to have any recourse against them. But when you say highly likely that he's going to get these punishments, and if he doesn't, you wonder a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think Tennessee, the way that contract was written, I think they covered themselves pretty good.
Chuck, there may be, if there is a bright side to this, it might be the fact that Tennessee found out about this when they did. Because if he had issues at Morehead State, if he's guilty of issues at Southern Miss, at least Tennessee found it out early before you had a chance, we think, to commit any violations at Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean, and I was even wondering, when did they find out? I mean, if he deletes these emails and it's supposed to have been, what, November the 16th? Yeah. How long have you known or had a pretty good idea that if this is what comes down from the NCAA, this is what we're going to have to do? I mean, you can't do the Tammy Wynette thing and stand by your man because you tried that with Bruce Pearl.
Yeah. for a while.
Well, I think the other thing to your point too, from the timing standpoint, is yes, we're rewinding this, but Cuonzo left, middle of April. So at least when we get to these candidates, you have a bigger pool of candidates because of the timing. That's why Dave Hart should get credit for pushing the pedal to the NCAA, saying, hey, look, give us a summary, give us something, because we got to make a decision.
We mentioned it last year. I think we got video of last year's show. Dave Hart said at the press conference that now there's the old set and the old show. There's where we read the NCAA issues the week that Donnie Tyndall was hired. We ran them right here on this show, and Dave Hart ignored it. I've talked about it for the last year that was a bad move.
Yes.
Tennessee couldn't at that point go back and grab a guy in their situation. I'm all for second and third and 15 chances. Tennessee in its situation at that point couldn't afford to give one. And they did, and he's now said he's not going to go after a coach with NCAA baggage. He took the bullet, though. He didn't try and dodge around it. He said it was with me, and I think he deserves some credit for that. Let's get into a couple of real quickies here. He said he wanted an experienced head coach, but he didn't quite fully rule out assistant coaches. Do you think assistants are going to weigh highly on this list, though?
No.
Coming into this, you need someone that's been the focal point of a program.
Agreed. Okay. Dave Hart said that they are setting records in fundraising. I think he was doing that to say, hey, things are going fine, we're good. There's what you say and there's what people hear. When you say we're doing great fundraising, there are people saying, oh, well, you've got plenty of cash to go buy a coach. When asked, Mike, you asked him, and you said, will you be able to go into the big market? He said, I think we can. And then he quickly couched it by saying, now, there's nothing to say that we'll have to do that. Do you think he's going to regret telling the fan base, oh, yeah, we got money?
No, I don't think he's going to regret it necessarily, but I want to see it to believe it that they're going to go big into the marketplace.
And that's what I'm getting at. If you say it and then you come back with Michael White from Louisiana Tech, people are going to say you just held on to the money, is what I think they'll say.
Your short list of 30 candidates, I think mine was even longer. But
I've got 40 on the board. So.
40. When I looked at that, there are about 5 that you'd have to open the pocketbook to get. And Greg Marshall's one of them. But if you want to get these, you're going to have to pay a lot of money. The rest of them, I think you can get for $2.4 million, somewhere in that range.
And Marshall, you're now in a bidding war with Alabama and Texas, so that's brutal on the Marshall front. Quickly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. The market there is a lot bigger. The price tag has gone up.
Chuck, the money they have to spend. There are a lot of people that say, go spend that money. Come on. My feeling is, well, then are you writing a big check to UT? Or are you just saying some other big donor should write the check to UT? Because I think that's kind of what we're looking at. Do you think they're going to spend big money on a coach? Do you think they have to?
I don't think they will. I mean, when have they done that before? And I think
they've offered a couple of times, but they got turned down.
Yeah, and usually it seems like the person they're going after is just using that to sweeten the pot where they are now. I think they're going to end up going after a mid-major guy or Rick Barnes of Texas.
Okay.
I think they may not want to, but because of the circumstances, they're going to have to. Because even administrations, they've said, we've got to get this one right. And so coaches know that. They know they can ask for a little bit more money, and so they're going to pay more than they really want to.
Perfect example. Michael White was the first choice last year. He wanted too much of a buyout, so they went to Donnie Tyndall and wound up giving him a pretty good deal anyway. Didn't have to use the buyout. But now you would think if you're talking to Michael White again, guess who's got more leverage and who might just get what he asked for last year this year. So we got a lot more to cover in this show. We'll also run through 40 candidates for you a little later. Coming up next, guess whose name is back in the mix? We'll talk about Bruce Pearl. Come on back on the Sports Source.
Decks, dens, homes. Turn to Benedict Construction.